Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And welcome into Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. Terry Slavens with you, joined by our usual host, Angela Kennedy Robinson. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning. Good morning.
And Aaron Kennedy,
and
2 weeks
Aaron
in a row.
Kennedy, right.
I don't know if we drew the short straw or the long straw.
We drew the long straw today. It's funny, last week, so we were talking, and by the way, isn't it a great day the Cowboys won? I'm just saying. I had to throw that in there. But being the fan that I am.
Is Aaron a fan?
Aaron's a fan, of course.
Yes. All right.
But, last week we talked about the market kind of staying volatile. We really needed to do a show just based around investments and what we are doing with our clients and have been doing for about the last 12 months, because it's not a matter of if the markets are going to fall.
It's a matter of when.
That's exactly right. And the question is, are you prepared before it's too late?
Stress test your investments before it's too late?
Stress test your investments before it's too late. Find out what it is. Because here's the deal. All right. We all know that there's a certain amount that we can handle emotionally watching our money go down. Even if we think it, the market comes right back up, there's always that level of fear that what if this time it's different, right? And we actually do a show on this. We did this not too long ago about how many years in the market, the last 50 years in the market, this time it's different. And we went through those 50 years talking about different circumstances that occurred, but we always get there. And I think that's big. A little piece of trivia for you. I went and looked this up, and we've been throwing this around for the last few shows. But according to the latest 2014 Dalbars quantitative analysis of investor behavior, the average investor in a blend of equities and fixed income mutual funds has garnered only 2.6% net annualized return for the last 10 years, or for a 10-year period ending December 2013. Now, think about this over the last 20 years, because a lot of people say, well, that was during a really bad time in the market. Well, it was still only 2.5%.
Wow.
And if you back it up 30, it was 1.9%. That's the average investor, okay? Why is that? It's our behavior, right? It's our fear and our greed. When you have the S&P 500, that even during that really bad time ending 2013, it still returned 7.4% annualized. Okay, that's a big difference.
Big difference.
That's massive. So, that's what this show is about, is really trying to get down to the nitty gritty. If my portfolio is built like this, what can I expect? And that's what we've been doing with people's portfolios, new clients that have been coming to us, and even our existing ones. We've been going back through it and saying, hey, look, if the financial crisis occurs again, if we have something that happens like 2008 and 2009, this is what would happen to your portfolio today. Are you okay with that? So we're going to go through some of these scenarios. We're going to talk about this. We've also got some great information, because we're going to talk about how we're getting what we call alpha out of the portfolios, because we talk about inflation a lot on this show, right? And if I should just throw this out there, we could give away a nice little prize. Let's see, what could we give away? We can give up something. Someone can tell us what the rate of inflation is, but here's the deal. You got to email us before the break is over. lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Tell us what that rate of inflation is. We talk about all the time on the show. Even though the government says it's one thing, everything we hear is telling us it's another, because that's going to be a big part of this show today, about how to beat it, and then how to provide you an income if the market is going straight down. What do you need to do? Great show today. You don't want to miss it.
Don't want to miss it right here on KTX KWBY. We'll be back with more Life Planning 101 right after this. And welcome back to Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. Angela Kennedy Robinson. We're talking about stress testing your investments before it's too late.
Right. I think we can sum this up in two questions, because here's two conversations that I had in the last 2 weeks, all right? Number one, would it be okay if your investment portfolio went down $400,000?
Nobody would be okay with that.
Right?
Would you, Aaron?
That's when you actually put the dollar amount to it. Percentages don't make sense in our mind until we put a dollar amount to it, and they're like, oh, that's real.
Yep. Then it's emotional, right? Because if you think about it, $1 million portfolio that drops like the market, $400,000.
Wow.
Wow. Could you stomach it, right? Answer in this case, absolutely not. And then here's then a reverse question that I had almost like an appointment right after that was, okay, are you all right with a 3% annualized return on your portfolio?
And a lot of people would probably say yes, because you walk into the banks and you look at what they're paying and you think 3% versus 0.40.
Yep.
But
And
what about the rate of inflation?
And then what about this? And are you okay running out of money by the time you're 70?
Ooh, no.
No. And the answer I get, of course, is, well, I am if I die before I'm 70, right? So, but here's the deal is that, it all kind of goes hand in hand. And I think everybody wants all the upside and no downside, right? We want our cake and we want to eat it too. That's the way it is. But the reality is, and Aaron says this, and I'll let him explain it, you deserve the return you get. What do you mean by that, Aaron, when you say that?
Well, what I mean is everybody psychologically can handle so much downside, and they can only handle so much that they can be beat by their neighbor. Always talk about talking to your neighbor and seeing what they got as returns. If you're greatly out or underperforming that, well, you're going to change your portfolio. And as humans, we always do that at the wrong time. Angela was talking about it earlier. Average return of 2%. You can't survive on that.
No.
You can't live past 70 on that. That's just horrible. But, psychologically, if we can help you walk through the amount of upside, the amount of downside, what we can expect over time, hopefully we won't be making those emotional decisions. Hopefully we will get the return that you deserve, and it's going to be greatly larger than the 2% over the long term. If we can get our mind out of the way, we can live life on purpose and we can retire successfully.
And
That's right.
The 2% is you're going backwards.
Yes.
You're not making any money.
Which answers our question from the first segment. Those are, and of course, I'm not at the office. I can't get the answers right here in front of me, so I'll be surprised if we've got a winner. But inflation, what we're seeing is about 4%. So you are going backwards if you get that. And, that kind of leads me into this next thing. So we've got this awesome tool. And it's, by the way, for our listeners, on our website. You can go to Kennedy-financial.com, go to our Learning Center, which, by the way, is absolutely phenomenal. There are so many great things in that Learning Center. It's just great. Everything to do with money, retirement, business succession, everything. You just don't want to miss it. But there's a place on there. It says Investment Stress Test. And you can actually go into that, get what your risk score is, put in your investments, and see where they align. Know where you are before it's too late. Pretty cool, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, let's just walk through some of these, because I think this is the biggest deal, is that there's this misconception that, okay, we have a 2013 bull market. That was a huge year in the market. The S&P 500 was up 32% that year. It's a big year, right? So, again, going back to your conversation, Aaron, about what you said, if you're talking to your neighbor over the fence and they're taking S&P type risk and you're not, you're probably upset that year.
Yeah, you're very upset.
Right? But so let's get real here. So there's that. And then someone that's taking half the amount of risk is expecting in that same year probably 14%.
Yeah, we just about half.
Just about half. So how can you honestly expect those market-like returns? And it's a psychological thing. We have this problem with it. But then here's the deal. Okay, so that same investor, they switch their risk because they say, well, I want to make those types of returns. And then we have another financial crisis happen. Guess what happens to that S&P portfolio? Down 53%. Okay, on $1 million.
And they're really not happy.
Right, on $1 million, that's $530,000.
Wow.
Yeah, think about that, okay? Where the risk level was prior to that was half that amount. Half that amount. So they were only down, $200 $20,000 versus that $530,000. That's a huge difference, huge discrepancy, right? So, how do we manage that emotionally? And also, I think the biggest deal is, how does that fit into your goals? We always talk, and I love this. Aaron says, I'm not an investment portfolio manager. And yes, he is, because he does pick investments, but what he really is he's a risk manager. That's what he has to deal with, is the people's emotions and trying to get the most bang for our buck. In other words, keeping people under control. And we take this so different approach to risk, and perhaps it's because we do all this life planning as well. It's not just a financial plan. This is where you need to be and this is what you need to do. No, we say, okay, well, based on your current situation, your future, your goals, your feelings about risk tolerance, your feelings about different markets and things like this, your family dynamics. This is where you need to be. This is the risk you need to take to get you to where you go. Now, let's see if you're comfortable with that. Can you handle that? And if the answer is no, well, then we've got to change other variables in your life to make this work, or else you're going to have to be comfortable with that. And which one do you want to go down, right? So we take this very different approach to that. And we're at the end of the show, Aaron's actually going to walk us through how we build income, because I think this is the most critical thing when you're dealing with all of this and dealing with risk. Is we talked about going down $530,000 if you have $1 million portfolio. That's a massive hit. But let me ask another way. Let's suppose that you have the next 5 years of income and you know where that's coming from. Can you let the rest of your portfolio ride that roller coaster with the market?
Individuals are different. Some can, some can't.
That's right. But and you're right. Some people that's a 3-year window. Some people that's a 5-year window. Some people that's a 7-year window. But we've all got to have a piece of it that's beating inflation. Because if it's not, we're going to have to pick an age that we die, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah, the 100 live100.com or whatever that you talked about last week.
That's right. That's exactly right.
That's not the most fun meeting.
No, it's not.
I'm only living to age 80. I need to make some changes. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, we don't like to see those we have a little blue graph and it just goes, we don't want to see it fall off. So, but it gets really scary. And I think that's where people really have to gauge that. And, Aaron, you went through a lot of these stress tests. How many of these companies did you actually vet?
Oh, 7 of them.
7 of them?
7 different stress testing softwares that we went through. They're incredible. They all do the same risk and return, but you can line up different scenarios. And basically, the biggest difference is how we can get people to understand what they're trying to say. Mm-hmm. They can be very scientific, they can be very mathematical, but that doesn't mean anything if somebody can't understand what it's telling them.
That's right. And I think that's really important to be able to see, with this one, I love it because it gives us a speed limit. Virtually the market runs at speed limit 78. Hey, that's pretty easy for us to visualize and comprehend, right? So, whatever speed limit we're on, we're able to see that. We're able to see the numbers side by side through all different types of scenarios, through all different types of, we could go back 10 years, lifetime, whatever it is. And that's really cool because it gives you, a broad range of expectations. And I think that's really important. So when we come back, you don't want to miss it. We're going to walk through how we put together a portfolio designed for protecting your income in retirement.
Okay, you're listening to Life Planning 101 right here on KTX, KWBY. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back in Life Planning 101 on KTX, KWBY. Angela Kennedy Robinson, Aaron Kennedy with us, and we're going to continue testing the stress of your investment.
That's exactly right. Hey, we've had a month. It's the market's been down over the last month and a half actually. About there, it's been extremely volatile, and we've been saying it's going to be volatile. We don't have a crystal ball, but anytime you're in an election year, especially as weird as this election year is, and then there's so much else on top of that. We've got all this Fed raising interest rates, world's falling apart, terrorism, name it, oil oil prices, I mean, gosh, I mean, there's no reason that the market shouldn't just be going haywire right now. So, it's a prime time before the election occurs is to really get to the nitty gritty and figure out what your investments would do when the market starts going backwards, because it will happen. Today is going to be a big up day. Everybody's going to get a big sigh of relief. So use your positivity. Get on our website, okay? Go to our learning center. You can find your investment stress test and do it. It is for your benefit. And while you're there, tweet us at KFS Life Planning. We have a poll this week. We want to know who is helping you manage your investments. No one but you, your employer or HR person, a financial advisor, or a life planner. For a future show, we're going to address this. So let us know who is managing your investments. But let's get to the nitty gritty in here. Okay, so let's say that we have a client that comes in and they want to retire. And they're going to retire in 3 years. They've got 2 girls. They're going to have weddings, and we've got some expenses for that. They plan on taking special vacations every 5 years, where they're going to go to Australia or do something great. And so we've got to put all this together, and we've done all the planning aspect. Aaron, how do we build out that portfolio? What does that look like?
All right. Well, number one, we have to determine what the cash needs are. As good as anybody says they are in the market or anything else, there really is no crystal ball, and you really can't take the risk of the market being down next year on September the 10th or being up on that day or throughout the year. There's just no crystal ball. And no matter what anybody says, they cannot predict the future. Everybody needs to really understand that. So we would take the immediate cash needs and just hold that in cash. We always do have a conversation. We don't want to be holding 50% in cash. Hopefully that's not your cash needs over the year, because that's just a little bit
you're going to run out of money.
You're in big trouble.
Yes. But on a typical cash needs, we're going to hold a year's worth of it in cash. That way we don't have to worry about it. It's not going to be destructive on your portfolio. And if you really look at it, years of cash isn't that much different than holding fixed income. Just because if interest rates do rise, you're going to have a loss on that portfolio, whereas cash, completely safe. We worry about inflation, and that's it. Now, the rest we bill out, because everybody has cash needs, and we want to be able to guarantee those cash needs and be able to beat inflation. So there's a lot of different things we can use depending on your risk level. We can actually guarantee those with a CD, and not your CD that is you go to your bank and get. We're not getting 70% of 1%. We're not getting 1.5%. That's just not going to do us any good. We can tie it to different markets. And we're very realistic of what we're doing. Our target on these are anywhere between 4 and 8% of what we can get the entire time it's in the market. If we're in it the entire time, whether that's 3 years or 7 years, if we hold it to the end, we get our money back.
And by that you mean they're FDIC insured. You've got that.
Insured,
you've got that
just
principal
like any
protection.
other CD. So if it's our year to pull out for our income and the market's down 50%, guess what you lost? 0. We still pulled your money out. You weren't hurt for taking that income. And guess what? We got another one that we'd bought right behind it. So if the market recovers, that CD's worth a lot more. If the market continues to go down, guess what? FDIC insurance kicks in. So we can really guarantee your income, and depending on your risk level, we can do it for 3, 5, 7, even 10 years we can keep going. And when we get everything set up, we just roll it over every single year. So you never run out of guaranteed income.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the portfolio is making inflation over time, plus a decent return, whatever our target was to get you through retirement.
Yeah. And I think, what's really important is that, we look at this. I always like to go back to 08 and 09. And we had a lot of clients taking income during that period of time. And I remember, we had anywhere from 3 to 5 years of bucket, 5 years of income set aside. And that risk tolerance has changed. Some of those people that were 3 to 5 are now 5 to 7 because of what they went through, right? But one thing I know is we went through all of year one's income. We went through part of year two's income. Did we ever dip into year three's income during 08 and 09?
No.
That's pretty impressive. So, the rest of the portfolio was able to recover.
That's
because,
exactly right.
We didn't jump off the roller coaster. Remember what I said about, what my dad always says? He says, okay, so we pick the roller coaster you want to get on, and as long as we stay on it, what's going to happen? We don't get hurt, right? But as soon as you jump off, what happens?
If you jump off low, you're going to lose money.
That's exactly right. So you didn't lose anything until you pull it out.
Right.
I think that's what most people don't understand. So, as long as you're investing in the right way, right? Because you have places in the market that do lose money, but there are ways to protect against a total, utterly loss. We call it T-ball investing. It's what a T-ball approach investing,
That's
right?
exactly right.
So you can get market-like returns with T-ball approach investing, and I think that's what's really, really important here. So, Aaron, thank you so much for going through that scenario, because I think that's really important for people to be able to see that, you do have more than just one answer of picking a 70, 30, 50, 50, 100% portfolio and trying to gain your risk or figure out what your risk needs to be, and then just hope and pray today as I retire that the market's not going to go down and I'm not subject to sequence of returns, right? And we try to take that risk out when we're actually building out a portfolio for retirement, because we have a saying that we want to help people retire and stay retired successfully, okay? Because we want to help them live life on purpose.
Don't want to have to be the Walmart greeter.
That's exactly right. We want
Unless
people.
you want to.
Unless you want to,
you want to
right?
get out of the house,
If it's fulfilling, that's what matters.
That's right.
So, but I think that is important. We have a sleep test. We tell clients, you're not sleeping at night, you call us. We're going to make adjustments, because nothing is worth your health. Nothing is worth anything else. Money is not worth that. It's just your tool. And we do the best job that we can to be able to help manage your emotions through these times. So again, go on our website, take this stress test. It's a great thing to be able to do, especially with the market like it is. Investment stress test under our learning center at Kennedy-financial.com. Don't want to miss doing that. We might just take it off here in a couple weeks. So, we don't want you to miss it. But again, thanks everyone for listening to the show. My name is Angela Robinson. Thanks to my brother, Aaron Kennedy, our very own chartered financial analyst here in Eastland. And all his expertise and knowledge is greatly appreciated when it comes to this type of thing, because he's the one that actually puts all this together. So thanks again, and God bless, and go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Carlton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Carlton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.